Both of Evolutionary Hoof Care's Radius Rasps have the same handle and are used in the same manner, pushing or pulling around the edge of the hoof wall. But the white RR1 has a perforated shaving blade, and the black RR2 a solid rasp tooth blade. We make these blades as sharp as possible so they will last longer, but this means they can be difficult to push when brand new. Use very light pressure on a new blade until it begins to work more smoothly. Either can be used by itself, but in combination they will give you the best results. The black RR2 is best at removing sharp edges and hard outer layers of wall horn, and for rounding extra hard or very thick hoof walls. The white RR1 works best after the hard outer layer has been removed, and will shave away horn very rapidly, leaving a smoother surface than the black. The purpose of the Radius Rasp is to reproduce the durable Mustang roll found on healthy wild horse hooves. In domestic horses, it is usually best to round only the outer aspect of the wall and leave the inner border of the hoof wall protruding below the sole to bear weight. Rounding is important in preventing cracking and flaring of the wall. Full rounding of the toe region helps promote easier movement and limit forward migration of the hoof capsule. By changing the angle at which you hold the Radius Rasps, you can make the arc of the Mustang roll narrower at the heels and wider at the toe. But it is important to smooth the wall well above its bearing surface all the way around the hoof. This is best done using the hoof buffers after the Radius Rasps. Regular application of the Radius Rasps every 2 to 3 weeks will help you create a healthier, stronger hoof. The curve of the Radius Rasp blades enables you to shape the roll as you push them around the edge of the hoof wall. Be sure to apply the blade across the width of the roll, whether working from above or below. Use the edges of the blade to reach the upper border of the roll. The Radius Rasp handle fits comfortably in one hand. Finger grooves on the sides and front provide secure control as you drive the rasp forward with the palm of your hand. These rasps work best when pushed forward with lighter downward pressure. More strokes with lighter pressure gives the best results. To begin rounding, apply the black RR2 with quick, straightforward strokes using light downward pressure across the sharp edge of the wall to flatten and then round it. Follow up with the RR1 using a twisting motion to refine the arc of the roll with its shaving blade. Be sure to work both the lower and upper borders of the roll and widen it toward and across the toe region. The most basic application of Radius Rasps is for regular maintenance of the Mustang roll. This should be done every couple weeks or after rides that might have chipped the hoof wall. With a little practice, holding the hoof in one hand while you rasp with the other, these touch-ups can be done without even putting the hoof between your legs. Be sure to smooth and round the wall well above the bottom edge. This prevents flaring and chipping. Finish up with the RR1 shaving blade to create the smoothest contour. Remember to push the rasp forward, not downward, as you vary the angle of your strokes and twist your wrist. And use both hands. You can also use the front of its blade to flatten the bearing surface of the wall across the quarters and around the white line. Both Radius Rasps can be difficult to push when the blades are new and teeth very sharp. If you use a more relaxed grip on the handle and float the rasp across the hoof with lighter, shorter strokes, it will move more easily. More strokes with lighter pressure works best. Even the shaving blade of the RR1 can feel rough to push when new. With use, it will push more easily and shave more smoothly. So with new blades, use an easy, shorter stroke. Be sure to rasp the outer hoof wall across the toe to remove any flare or pointed form there. Rasping the toe eases breakover and avoids cracking. But it is best not to round the wall all the way back to the white line. Leave some wall to bear weight at the toe, and be sure to smooth the edges of the thinner sections of the wall at the quarters near the heels. You can also do these touch-ups by putting the hoof on your knee, but only if you trust your horse. This gives you a better view of how you are rasping the upper border of the Mustang roll, and when you have flares to deal with, that can be useful. Another approach is to turn around and face forward so that you can reach the inner hoof wall more easily as you rasp. Regular trims to maintain the arc of the Mustang roll can also be done holding the hoof between your knees. In this position, you can rasp from heel to toe around both sides of the hoof by switching the rasp from your left to your right hand. Remember to vary the angle of your strokes to cover all parts of the roll as you work the rasp around the hoof. You can check the wall for ridges with your fingers as you round it. Following up the Radius Rasp use with a hoof buffer will give you the smoothest, most durable roll possible. Now for a closer look at specific ways to apply the Radius Rasps. Using both your right and left hands enables you to round the heels and the sidewalls more effectively, pushing the rasp forward from heel to toe around each side of the hoof. You can also use both hands together, which is useful when working the toe wall of the hoof. Most rounding is done with a pushing stroke, driving the rasp forward with the heel and palm of your hand. But in some positions you will find a pull stroke useful. Be sure to use all parts of the blade, the edges as well as the center. The center works best to form the middle part of the arc of the roll. The edges to work the bearing surface of the wall and the upper border of the roll on the outer surface of the hoof wall. The flatter front end of the Radius Rasp 1 blade works well to smooth the bearing surface of the wall, particularly at the quarters. Rounding the toe wall is particularly important. Be sure to rasp well above the bearing surface of the toe and even flatten it on hooves with long toes and flat soles. Supporting the hoof with one hand as you rasp with the other increases the effect of each stroke and can allow you to move one of your legs to get better access to the side wall. As you rasp, stop occasionally to feel the wall for sharp edges. This shows you areas that need more rasping. Using a hoof stand provides solid support, making each stroke of the rasp more effective. Working from above with the hoof on the grip head allows you a clear view of the shape of the Mustang roll you are creating. This works on hind hooves as well as front ones. The support of a hoof cradle also makes your rasping more effective, but you need a cradle that does not obstruct your access to the outer hoof wall. Brace the hoof with your free hand by pushing it down against the cradle, and switch hands for each side of the hoof. This also makes using the hoof buffer more effective. Here you can see how the hoof buffer helps finish the upper border of the roll. A well-designed hoof cradle can also allow you to use your hoof nippers to start the roll, as well as rasp it. And all without putting the horse's leg between your legs. A hoof cradle is particularly easy to use on hind hooves. The horse's weight steadies the hoof against the cradle for you and makes rasping much easier than holding the hoof on your thighs. Both Radius Rasps have strong magnets in their handles. These allow you to keep them in easy reach as you work. Evolutionary hoof care tool caddies have rust-proof steel plates where you can store your Radius Rasps on the caddy, which easily rotates to put the rasp right where you need them. To replace the Radius Rasp one blade, all you need is a block of wood. Place the wood against the back end of the blade. Push down on the handle until the blade slides forward and pull it out with your fingers. To install a new blade, insert one edge into one of the blade slots on the handle. Then press down evenly on the blade until its other edge snaps into the other slot. Make sure the blade seats evenly along both sides, including the corners at the back end. You can also remove blades by grasping them with pliers and pulling on the front end of the blade. When you install a new blade, be sure you position the cutting teeth upward and that the corners of the back end of the blade are slightly forward from the back ends of the blade slots. Then press the blade firmly into place. Check to be sure the corners are not bent out of the slots. If the blade is too far forward in the handle, press the front end against the board. Here's the blade install process again. One edge in one slot. Press firmly. Check edges for seating, and then press the corners back into the slots if needed. Radius Rasp 2 blades are rigid and must fit tightly in the handle's blade slots. Be careful to install blades with the round end to the front of the handle, the flat end to the back. Use a block of wood to remove an old blade. Place the wood against the back edge of the blade and press down on the handle firmly. To install a new blade, work the corners of the back end of the blade into the blade grooves, then press it inward. You can push the front end of the blade against the block of wood to seat it all the way. When properly installed, the blade protrudes slightly at the front and the back corners meet the ends of the blade slots. If you are not able to push the blade all the way into the handle, place the back of the handle on a block of wood and hit the front end of the blade with a hammer. Be careful not to drive it past the ends of the blade slots. You can also remove a blade by using a hammer. Wrap the handle in paper or cardboard, then secure the handle in a vise. Use a hammer and a flat blade screwdriver to drive the blade out of the handle. After extensive use, blades might become loose in the handle. A blade can be made to fit more tightly by applying a strip of tape along one edge with a small portion wrapped around the end of the blade to keep it in place. To do this, cut a piece of tape the length of the blade and apply it along one edge, with 1/4 inch extending beyond the flat end of the blade. Fold the flap over the end of the blade to keep it in position as you install the blade into the blade slots. You can also use a thicker tape such as duct tape if your blade is particularly loose. Apply it in the same manner along the side and around the end before you install it into the handle.